Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Fearless Generations with Terry Sayer and Kelly Fox.
Hello and welcome to Fearless Generations 12 Steps to Freedom. This is Kelly Fox, and I am super excited to be here tonight. It is step 12, everyone. Can you believe it? We have gone around all 12 steps one more time, and we are at step 12, which is love. Tonight we are talking about boundaries. And so let me introduce our guest coach tonight. She is new to the show, so please welcome Margaret Oliver. Hello? Oh, okay. Her phone number got dropped, so we will just wait until she gets back on, and hopefully Terry will be joining us soon. We're talking about boundaries, and when it comes to love, we're talking about all kinds of love. So that's self-love, that's love that you have with a partner, with a child, with a pet, with a organization. It can be love of all different kinds of things. But, of course, in Fearless Living, we always start with ourselves. And how do we love ourselves in a way that is really good for us? We set boundaries. So setting boundaries is really important when it comes to self-love. Okay, Margaret is back.
I am back.
All right.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on, but something is.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll keep you on this time for the rest of the show. So please introduce yourself to the audience. Share with us who it is you get to serve and what it is you get to do.
Great. Okay, I'm Margaret Oliver, and I serve people who are making changes in their lives, probably mostly women who are 50 and older, but actually anybody who wants to make a change and doesn't know where to get started or how to get started and just needs some encouragement and support along the way, because that's what I provide, is encouragement and support.
I love that. Love that. So while we wait for Terry, please tell me, what does love mean to you? When you hear that the step is love, what does that mean to you?
Wow. Well, it kind of depends on love. I'm just kind of flabbergasted here because love is such a big subject. There are at least 27 different kinds of love, all the way from romantic and sexual and emotional love to loving the house that you live in or loving the work that you do, loving your animals, your children. They're all just different kinds of love. And I think it just means wanting the best for other people as well as for yourself.
I love that. Wanting the best. I love that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to boundaries, how does that play into love for you?
I think boundaries are necessary in order to love, to tell you the truth, especially between two people. But it also affects how you treat yourself and how you express love to yourself. The thing about boundaries is that they aren't boundaries if there are no consequences. If there are no consequences, it's simply a request, that you would like to have something or that you think this would be a good idea. But if you have a boundary, there's a consequence. And I realize that this happens even with our own selves. If if I have a boundary, if I need to be in bed by 10:30 at night every night. If I'm not, the consequence is that I'm tired the next day. I'm sleepy. I feel stupid. I feel like my head is stuffed up. It just doesn't work well. If I have chocolate after 12 noon, I know that I probably won't sleep that well that night. So there's a boundary there. You know, yes, caffeine does a number on me.
That would be the worst thing ever.
So I limit myself to how much chocolate I have before noon even, you know, 1 square for medicine and 1 square for pleasure. And yeah, you have to have pleasure. But there are consequences. And I discovered this quite some time ago. But I didn't realize it until recently. I had a friend who was definitely a night owl. For her, 9 o'clock at night was the middle of her working day, and for me, it was the time I was starting to wind down and get ready for bed and just, you know, calm down. And we had the best conversations, and she would call me, and we never were on the phone, I think, for less than half an hour at a time, and often much longer. And I finally realized I couldn't do this because I would get all wound up after our conversations. They were so interesting, and they were so compelling, and my mind was just racing after them. And I realized I couldn't keep talking to her after 9 o'clock at night. So I put in line what I thought was a boundary. You know, I said, please don't call me after 9 o'clock. And I expected that was all I needed. And then one night she called me about 5 minutes before 9 because she wanted some information from me or some encouragement about what she was writing. And I got a little bit bent out of shape because she had not honored my boundary. And it wasn't until not very long ago that I realized I had not created a boundary because I had not told her what I would do if she did call at, you know, like just before 9. Or what I could have said was, you know, I can talk to you until 9 o'clock, and then at 9 o'clock I'm going to hang up, even if I'm in the middle of a sentence. And I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I expected her to honor my boundary. And that's not what boundaries are for. Boundaries are really for us. They're more for us than for anybody else. And if we don't maintain them, if we don't honor our own boundaries, why would anyone else?
True.
So that's what I learned about that boundary.
So what happened with your friend?
Pardon?
What happened with your friend?
Oh, we're no longer friends, and it was my, alas, it was a choice that I made, and it wasn't just that. There were some other things that were going on, but yeah, I think that was something big that I asked for something that I needed. I did not get it, and it didn't feel good, and I didn't have the skill or the knowledge at the time to correct that or to make it work better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I think,
you
know, we're taught a lot of things in school, but like communication skills, not necessarily. How to deal with expectations, nope. You know, how to navigate or negotiate a relationship, nope. You know, all of these really important skills that, you know, learning somehow, but we're not learning them as we grow up. We're learning them by usually doing something wrong, right? So
something that doesn't work. Yeah. The thing too about boundaries is that they help define the relationship. I mean, you can't have a relationship between one person who's in charge and does it, and everything is done their way, because then it's just a person with somebody tagging along. It's not a relationship between two individual people. When I was initially thinking about this subject and thinking how we would talk about it, I realized that every single person in the world has a boundary, and that is our skin. We all have the boundary of our skin. It keeps us whole. It protects us, permeable. So we do have the ability to choose what we will put on it, or if we want to open it, or if it needs to be opened, like, if we have a boil or something, or if we need surgery or something, we do have that option of opening it. The boundary is nourished from the inside, and it looks different in different parts of our bodies. It's not exactly the same everywhere on our bodies. And so I think of that as a metaphor for boundaries in general. We don't necessarily have the exact same boundary for every single person in our life. For example, what I mean by that is that for some people, you might be willing to talk to them after 9 o'clock at night whenever they call, or I might have been willing to talk to anybody at 9 o'clock at night whenever they call. For other people, no, never, ever, ever, ever. Don't talk to me after 9 o'clock at night. For sometimes for ourselves, the boundaries for ourselves, we make a conscious choice to have more chocolate than usual, or to go to bed a little bit later than usual, knowing that we're going to suffer the consequence. So
I'm so glad I don't have that consequence. Yeah, and all of this conversations about not calling you after 9, it's after 9, so I feel pretty special that you're here with me.
Well, I don't have to get up at 5:30 in the morning anymore, so that's what's really wonderful about this. I can sleep until 7 if I can.
Ooh. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
I think boundaries are really important. Go ahead.
I was just going to say something else about boundaries is that we need to know ourselves in order to create good boundaries. We need to know where our own limits are as to what we want to accept, what we will accept, what we're too uncomfortable accepting. If we don't know ourselves, we can't make good boundaries.
True.
So maybe that's another way I'm saying of love yourself, know yourself, and you'll love yourself. You take better care of yourself.
Yeah, I don't feel like growing up I had, boundaries at all. I was the person who tagged along and just did what you wanted because I wanted you to want me around.
Sure.
And I did and I do have values. So there were certain lines I wouldn't cross, certain activities I wouldn't partake in. But sense of how I think of boundaries, I really didn't have any. And it wasn't until I got a friend that really pushed, or really asked like a ridiculous amount of me that I realized I have no boundaries. And so it was then, okay, so what is not okay? And I was able to then establish, okay, this is not okay. I'm not doing this anymore. Right? Like with your friend, you decide, okay, I'm not talking after 9. But it wasn't until like that boundary had been so stepped over that I realized that I needed a boundary there.
So how do you define boundaries?
Well, I think it's a way of keeping. I think there's multiple ways of describing it, but it's a way of keeping ourselves safe. So, it's a way of taking care of ourselves. Like I used to pride myself in being a person who would give my very last drop, right, out of my cup. Like, I would give someone my last drop, right? And then I realized, like, what does that do to a person to give everything to the point that they don't even have one drop, And so I decided, what, my boundary is I can give until I'm at 30%, and then I have to go away and recharge. Like I can't go below 30% for anything. So, but that's also, it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm doing things to fill my cup, right? So that I don't get down to 30%. And that I'm able to give, because it's really awesome to be able to give from your overflow, so that it's not taking anything from you to give, right? It's all extra. It's all bonus. And so it's my responsibility to put myself in a position where I can do that. Because as a mom, you never know who's going to need something, or, all of a sudden your kid's going to throw up, or, there's a bake sale tomorrow and it's 10 o'clock, right? You never know, like these things are going to come up, and you need to be able to step up and be the mom. But that's also a really good thing of being in a partnership, of sometimes when you are at 30%, your partner can, kind of jump in and give assistance as well, like you tag team taps you out, right? Or they tap you out. But it's my responsibility to make sure that I don't go below 30, and that if I'm getting close to 30, I have a plan of how I'm going to recharge, how I'm going to step away and I'm going to refill. So I think that
for knowing that, for knowing where your limit is. I was saying, good for you for knowing where your limit is.
Yeah. Well, I didn't for a long time. And it became to the point where I was just completely exhausted all the time, and I had to start taking care of myself. I'm still have low energy because I could be taking care of myself better, but I definitely have more than I used to. Show up. And so I'm definitely on the right track. But if you want something from me, probably at 10 o'clock, you're not going to get much unless you are someone that means a whole lot to me. Even if one of my kids, because my husband stays up later than I do, so if one of my kids needs something at 10 o'clock, it's got to be something like really serious for me to be able to be awake for it. But there are certain people that if they call, I will make myself wake up and I will be there for them, I think that but that's, like you were saying, that's definitely not everybody. That's what
I mean by permeable boundaries. There are some people, there are some situations where you make a choice to make the extra effort, even though you're going to be affected by it the next day, but you just have to kind of plan that into things. Well, which brings up the tool that I wanted to mention, actually.
Is go for it.
The ability to say no or to say yes. I've got a couple of books that I read a meditation from every morning, and one of them is from a guy who wrote this in the 1600s, and
wow.
his name is Balthazar Gracian. But one of his number 70 meditation is know how to say no, and he goes on and talks about it. But the very last he says, no and yes are short words requiring long thought. And the tool I wanted to give people was to simply practice saying no out loud multiple times a day. And even more than that, and this is an assignment I gave to one of my clients, and I do have her permission to tell you that she has come up with at least 12 ways to say no without ever using the word no.
Awesome.
It would be something like, I hear that you're asking me to do this to be president of the club again, but I think it's really somebody else's turn to do it, so I'm going to decline. Or I'm not willing to do that anymore. There was a point where I was able to do this, but I'm no longer willing to provide that service or to give you the use of my room or to rent out this or whatever. So that there are many different ways that you can decline without actually saying no.
Yeah.
And another part of that, I think, of gracefully saying no is to acknowledge what the person is asking you, so which makes it not quite as abrupt.
Yeah.
And so that really helps. And there was something that popped into my head and then just popped right back out, and it was important.
It'll pop back in. I know. My kids probably wish it was easier for me to say yes. I'm pretty good at saying no.
Yeah.
They wish I said yes more often, but that I have learned though to say yes more easily, because like my first reaction is always like, they want to go somewhere? No. Is it safe? Who's taking you? How long are you going to be gone? Like, I want all of these details, right?
Sure.
And now they're learning that they need to come with those details, because then it is more likely for me to say yes.
Yes. Well, it's easier to move from a no to a yes than it is to move from a yes back to a no. That's for sure. Yeah.
I hear you on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it really is important to be able to say both, and to realize that when you're saying yes to something, you are also saying no to something else at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're constantly saying everyone else, then you are constantly saying no to yourself. And so to keep that in mind, being afraid of saying no to someone else, well, think of it that you're willing to say yes to yourself. And to be able to say yes to yourself, that means you might have to tell that other person no.
Yeah. And if you can't say yes to yourself, but I just think of people who say yes to everybody but themselves.
Right.
And what a terrible way to live.
Yeah.
To not be able to say yes, care of yourself, it's not selfish to put yourself first.
Nope.
In the
necessary.
way we think of it. Yeah, it's necessary, because otherwise how are we going to survive? Yep. And then who would say yes to everybody else?
Right. Who would take care of all these people you keep saying yes to if you're gone?
Yeah. And then what would they do? Well, maybe they would learn how to take care of themselves.
Maybe. You never know.
Yeah, that's
all right.
true.
Well, believe it or not, Margaret, we are almost out of time.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
It goes by so fast, I know. I want to give the audience a opportunity to learn how they can get a hold of you.
Oh, okay. Well, they can always email me at bblc29@mail.com, and I'll just spell that out a little bit again. It's BB for Bedrock Beginnings Life Coaching 29@mail.com. It's just the initials for Bedrock Beginnings. That's my business. That's my coaching business.
Very cool. So
BBLC 29.
Okay.
At mail.com.
All right.
And I did want to give your audience, too, a couple of resources that I have used over time. There are 2 books. One of them is Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. And it talks about all different kinds of boundaries. Boundaries at work, boundaries at home, boundaries as parents, boundaries as romantic partners, boundaries within the church. It's written from a very Christian, Bible-oriented viewpoint, so just be aware of that. Okay. And then the other one is 5 love languages. There was something in your write-up for this podcast that made me think, oh, well, if people just knew what their love languages were, they could communicate better.
Yeah.
And that one is by Gary Chapman, and you can take the test for free on the Love Languages website. And please Google it because I don't have that on the tip of my tongue. And find out where some of the communication has gone on.
I've taken the test a couple of times, and it changes.
But
so I think I might have a couple really strong ones.
Yeah. But it's really helpful to know. It really made a difference for me in one situation. To know that I was loved and that I just hadn't recognized it. So, well, it's been a pleasure talking to you too, Kelly.
It has been awesome to have you on the show. I thank you so much for being here, and I'm glad we were able to get you on before we go on hiatus.
Yes.
So, really happy we were able to get you on. So, if there was one thing you would want our audience to walk away with tonight about boundaries, what would it be?
Boundaries are for you, not the other person.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Those were great words to end on. We want to thank you, and we want to remind you all that the 12 Steps to Freedom were created by Rhonda Britton, the CEO and founder of the Fearless Living Institute. If you would like to know more about Fearless Living, go check it out at fearlessliving.org. You can find out everything about Terry and I on fearlessgenerations.org, like our 3 upcoming in-person events. We have an in-person event in February in Tulare, California, where Terry lives. We are doing another workshop in Canada in May. And then we have our retreat that we are doing in Laguna Beach in September. So go check it out. We have 3 events coming up next year. We would love to have you at one of them or all of them. And definitely, go check all of that out. And we thank you again, Margaret, for being here. And until next time, everybody, be fearless.
Okay. Good night.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.